If you're the one keeping everybody else happy while secretly feeling drained, it's not because you should be stronger to handle all of it. It's because you are carrying grief that you have never been allowed to process. My name's Elyssa Smith. I'm a trauma informed executive coach. And today on the Unlock Your Blocks podcast, we are talking about how unresolved grief and hidden trauma result in over responsibility and people pleasing, and how acknowledging the grief that's underneath it can finally set you free. So it doesn't happen overnight that we become these women who are carrying this burden, right? For keeping everyone else happy, for making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted and that everybody else is in a good place and that everybody else's feelings are being processed properly. It happens over a gradual period of time. And there are some places that this starts that you'll want to identify if you are able to see this pattern in yourself and you're ready to release it and have it be something that you don't take into your next level. So, if you were the emotional stabilizer in your family of origin home growing up, you had to be strong, you had to support everyone else. You would have learned that you have to suppress your own feelings in order to carry that burden of the family dynamic, keeping it buoyant. So, that would have been something that as a child, it would have meant things like neglecting your own needs sometimes in order to, and even if it's not what you would consider a need, like I have one client who's a really high performing entrepreneur, and we have recently identified that she would do things like avoid going out with friends because she was worried that even if her mom gave her permission to go out with the friends, that her mom would be angry no matter what time she got back. And because her mom was sort of this volatile presence in the house, and because my client is the responsible daughter and is the one who would kind of try and keep everybody happy all the time and make it so that mom didn't explode as much as she could try and control that, which she could predict these behaviors make mom explode, like getting back with my friends at an hour of the night that my mom's not happy with, even if she agreed to it. And she could pretty much predict if I don't do that, mom's not going to blow up, or at least it's not going to be a predictable blow up. So if you learned that you had to be that emotionally stabilizing presence in your home due to one or both of your parents having emotional blow ups or emotional unpredictability, that would have created this dynamic where you stop doing things that you want to do as a kid, like go out with friends or like have a hobby that you enjoyed in order to preserve the peace of the household. And that creates this dynamic of neglect for your inner true self at that time, which then ends up causing a real burden of grief later because we learn to have a pattern of neglecting ourselves and what we really want or need. Because, well, does it really matter enough to upset the family dynamic? So you might also have picked up unspoken grief from the adults in your life. You could have been carrying emotions that you weren't really meant to hold because they didn't know how to process them. So it's possible that you have parents who have been through big trauma, big loss, households where the parents experience the loss of a child or a miscarriage. There's a lot of grief that shows up and the other children may or may not know how to handle that. If it's not modeled for them, they may end up taking on things. And that's just one example. There are lots of examples of loss or chaos or trauma that happen to parents that ends up the grief gets passed on to the children. And we're just now starting to understand these things. And so those of us that are knowing better now with our own children, we can do better. But with our as as children ourselves, we likely didn't get the support that we needed, and our parents weren't getting the support they needed. So we can end up carrying that grief into adulthood without meaning to. Also, if you grew up with the dynamic that you got accolades, you got recognized, or you got more of your needs met when you made other people happy. I mean, how many times do we hear kids getting praised for sacrificing their own needs for a sibling or another person? It's not a bad thing to start to understand that it's nice to put other people ahead of yourself sometimes. But when that becomes a pattern and a part of a child's identity, their true self that wants to just show up however they show up and not necessarily according to some set of understanding or principles that means, okay, everybody else has to be happy first before I can be happy. When we are understanding that, hey, other people need to be happy before I can be happy, it creates this separation from that true self. And the child will learn, we will learn that our needs are not as important, which at a deep level causes grief and causes a struggle within us that says, am I really important? And for any child who's wondering that or who doubts her own importance, it causes a heaviness, a grief that's really challenging to carry. So when we learn that keeping the peace or keeping other people happy trumps our own needs, this innately is the cause of some unprocessed grief. And I want to help you understand what this looks like today and give you some steps that you can be taking that will really help you accelerate your next level of success and ease and abundance and happiness, and will also give you freedom from the old ways of thinking. So, as an adult, if you are carrying this responsibility for other people's feelings and it's been heavy and you are feeling that unprocessed grief or that hidden grief, you probably feel really responsible when someone else around you isn't happy. And you may even find yourself not really even acting like yourself, kind of acting like someone different to go and fish out some happiness for that person, from them, for them. Oftentimes, we interpret someone else's big, heavy, uncomfortable feelings as a disapproval of us. And if you grew up in a household where when you were disapproved of or when you weren't fully supported, that you actually you were in danger of emotional unsafeness or you were in danger of not physically not being safe, then that feels like a threat when somebody else is unhappy around you. So you may find yourself sort of what I call reaching into their hula hoop. Your hula hoop is your thoughts, feelings, choices, and actions. Their hula hoop is all of their thoughts, choices, feelings, and actions. Everyone is responsible for their own hula hoop, but we often find ourselves crawling up inside someone else's and trying to take responsibility for their feelings, their thoughts, their choices, their actions. And that's when it starts to be a real burden because you can't be in two hula hoops at once unless you're a professional hula hooper, in which case I have seen multiple hula hoops around one person. But unless that's you, then it's probably important for you to look at, do I feel overly responsible for other people's moods, other people's reactions, their comfort, even if it drains you and takes away from what you need? Do you still go after it and try and make them feel more comfortable? Another way that this can look is you can know that this is something that's going on inside of you, that you have this unexpressed grief, that you've been carrying this grief under keeping other people happy, is if you feel guilty expressing your own needs and particularly your own disappointments. If you feel ungrateful or guilty when you're talking about things that are difficult for you, if you swallow these things down to avoid conflict, that is how you can tell that you're carrying this unnecessary, well, I don't know if I want to call it an unnecessary load of grief and responsibility for others because this is what you needed to do to survive until now. But what got you here isn't going to get you to that next place. So that's what we're talking about today. And that's why this is so important. Now, you might notice that you lose energy managing everyone else's feelings and you don't have a lot left over for yourself at the end of the day. Now, if you're a mom like I am, that can just be like a normal Tuesday, okay? So if you're exhausted at the end of the day from managing other people, navigating, especially little people, listen, you're fine. That is a normal thing. But if you notice this sort of deep emotional heaviness, if you notice this burden that you feel that you never quite feel okay until you know that everyone else around you is okay, but it drains your energy to do it. That's how you know that this is you feeling overly responsible for everyone else's happiness and mood. Another way that this looks, and I've seen this in a lot of my clients, so a lot of high achieving women who are in a C suite executive or a CEO of their own business, things like this, oftentimes will feel very disconnected from what they really love. So they will feel disconnected from their own desires, from their own boundaries and capacity to hold boundaries, and from their own emotional truth. Typically, high achieving women, we've learned somewhere in childhood that it's up to us to balance and keep everyone else happy, which is what spurs on our kind of maybe sometimes unhealthy obsession with high performance. That I can't accept anything less than this from myself. And one way that we keep our mind fixed on that is to ignore what else comes up in us. So we ignore our own desires for long enough, and then we become totally disconnected. So a lot of women who are achieving the level of prosperity, wealth, success that they always have wanted, they come to me because they lost their joy in the process and they don't know why they're not fulfilled in this space. It's really normal for your nervous system to have been so dependent on keeping everyone else happy and keeping the performance high and continuing the high achievement in order to get your needs met and validated for belonging. But oftentimes it comes at the as a direct sacrifice of letting go of what you truly want. Because what you think everyone else wants you to do, what you think everyone else wants you to be, most of the time is not going to align with what you are truly created to be. So you get disconnected from your own desires when you ignore them for long enough to achieve some idea of success or idea of high performance that is either imposed on us or self imposed because we're in someone else's hula hoop guessing what they want from us. So our own emotional truth gets really watered down, and it's really hard to then come back to ourselves when we finally do achieve the lifestyle that we created or that we always wanted, the level of wealth we always wanted. And we're there and we realize that we've lost ourselves along the way. So if you grew up in a household where the only way to be was being the person that took on everyone else's happiness as your own job to create, these things are probably some of the things that you notice now. So, here is how you can start in a new direction with this because we want to honor the amount of work that your survival system did to get you to where you are. That's beautiful. We're so happy that you learned how to survive your environment, whether that was by pleasing others and sacrificing yourself. It doesn't matter. It got you here. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. I should say it's okay, however, you got here. But if you are to the point where you're understanding, man, there's this grief inside of me, or there's this disconnect, now you have a choice. You can actually create the joy and the peace that you've been craving without even doing much to your surroundings. You don't even have to be at a new level of success, although that level of success will open up to you as you get more and more true to yourself. But you start by acknowledging the grief, even if you can't name it all. And this can be as simple as like one thing I have my clients do is to just start a list of things that they know they went without in childhood. Maybe not even, it wasn't basic needs they went without, but maybe they went without ballet lessons. I have a client who wanted to dance, but because her parents identified for her that she was not going to be a professional dancer, they said, nope, you have to do this other musical instrument. So for her grief is I never learned to play an instrument that I liked or to dance or to sing or something like that because my parents identified I was excellent in this one area and I never had a choice to do something different. So that's a loss. So starting to name some of your losses, some of the ones that maybe don't feel as heavy, that can be a good, easeful place to start. So then you want to start identifying when do you start to feel uncomfortable and like you need to fix someone else's mood, choices, or discomfort. If you see someone else starting to suffer and you feel like, oh my gosh, I got to go stop them from suffering, or I got to stop them from being angry, I got to stop them from feeling uncomfortable, that's when you know, okay, this is my test. I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to take a beat before I decide to help them. Now, if you're a good little girl like I was, and you just feel like, well, if I can help them, I should. And if I know better than they do, I chuckle at myself because this is really what I believed. I mean, and you believed this growing up if you had that job in your life. But I believed that I knew better than other people did what was going to help them. So I took it on as my mission in life. I'm going to go help them help themselves. And, people don't love that. They don't really like when someone crawls up inside their hula hoop. But also, it caused me to have to abandon myself so much. So interrupting the need to fix someone else's discomfort is key. One slow breath before you try to go fix something is everything. Just start there. Another thing to start saying to your inner little girl is their feelings are not our responsibility. My job is to stay connected to myself. If you want help connecting to yourself, I have a great free PDF guide that you can download. It's the 5 nervous system hacks that you can do at your desk. Really quick and easy ways to get regrounded into yourself. Okay. So that's at ElyssaSmith.com/reset. It'll be in the show notes as well. But if you are struggling to help stay connected to yourself or to reconnect with yourself, this is a slow, gentle process. It can actually happen fairly quickly if you pair it with some nervous system regulation. So that will fast forward your process. But if you get stuck, you can always book if you're a woman and you identify as a female, then you can book a free 15-minute chat with me and I will help you identify where this comes from and why it's feeling so hard for you. And then I can help you identify your next steps from there. So I hope this is helpful because when you're carrying that grief, it can feel really, really draining. And this is one way to take a layer of heaviness off of your life and to free you up for just incredible ease and abundance in your next level. So until I see you next time, take such good care of yourself.